Hi guys, hope you're all having a nice day. In this video, I want to propose a method as to how Kuva could, or how I think it should scale in Kuva Survival. As I'm sure most of you already know, Kuva Survival is the slowest method of collecting Kuva compared to both Kuva floods and even regular Kuva missions. In fact, you actually gain Kuva at half the rate in Kuva Survival compared to Kuva floods. I'm going to be basing a lot of the math of this video on data collected by Reddit user Warframe Engineer. He ran through over 150 plus Kuva missions and recorded both the length of the mission and how much Kuva he gained. From this you can calculate how much Kuva you gain in each mission type per minute on average. All of his values seem to be accurate as they are very close to the theoretical limit of how much Kuva you can gain per minute in a mission. I'll leave a link to his Reddit post in the description below. Before I go over my proposed method of scaling, you have to understand how the rate of Kuva you obtain differs between what method you use to acquire it. Kuva floods are the fastest, wherein you will usually gain 260 Kuva for every minute you spend in the mission. Obviously, this is based on mission type, however this is the average between all mission types. Kuva floods are followed by regular Kuva missions at 150 Kuva per minute, and coming in last place are survivals at 128 Kuva per minute. However, instead I'm going to be basing my scaling off a rate of 130 Kuva per minute in survivals instead of 128, as it's a little bit closer to the theoretical maximum of 133.3 Kuva per minute. And the numbers work out much more nicely with one another. Since we know that we're gaining exactly double the Kuva per minute in Kuva floods compared to Kuva survival, all we have to do to figure out how much Kuva each extractor would have to give us to equal that rate is multiply the extractor's base Kuva given by 2, giving us 400 Kuva per extractor. It's logical to think that you should be rewarded equally when fighting enemies of equal difficulty, and I'm sure most of you would agree with that. Kuva floods range in level anywhere between 80 to 100, and it usually takes 40 to 45 minutes in a Kuva survival to reach those levels. It's pretty easy to figure out how much Kuva we'd have to increase each extractor by to have 400 Kuva per extractor 45 minutes into the mission. An extractor spawns every 90 seconds in Kuva survival. 45 minutes over 1.5 minutes, or 90 seconds, equals 30 extractors. Now we just find the difference between the Kuva per extractor and 45 minutes, and the Kuva per extractor at the mission start. So 400 minus 200 gives us 200, so that's 200 Kuva in total over 30 extractors gives us 6.66, or 6 2/3 Kuva per extractor. Now, the only issue with this method of scaling Kuva at a linear rate based on how many extractors you successfully complete is you have to give players either a portion of 1 Kuva or round every third extractor to give 7 Kuva instead of 6. Both of these solutions, so to speak, would be pretty confusing for players jumping into the mission. There is a way around this though. Instead of gaining 6 2/3 Kuva from each extractor, siphons could gain 40 Kuva from every 5 extractors. This is equal to gaining 6 2/3 Kuva from each one, and it's very clear as to how it's scaling. To increase the difficulty, it could be required for players to successfully extract Kuva from 5 siphons to gain the bonus 40 Kuva. For example, if you successfully extract 2 siphons and the third dies prematurely, then you will have to do 5 siphons instead of the remaining 2 you would have done to gain the extra 40 Kuva. This promotes having to protect the pods to gain the maximum amount of Kuva you can, and your counter wouldn't be reset for activating a life support tower. However, it's in your best interest not to do so. This way you gain as much Kuva as fast as possible. Obviously though, this wouldn't be a good idea to keep this scaling forever, as it would promote players to stay in the mission for unhealthy amounts of time. The only reason I run really long survivals and defenses is because I enjoy super high level enemies, and sadly it takes a long time to reach those enemies. I would much rather be fighting level 4000s in 1 hour as opposed to waiting 5.5 hours to do so. DE also realizes this, and this is the reason why you gain the maximum amount of bonuses as soon as you hit 90 minutes into a fissure survival, and it doesn't scale any further beyond that point. So let's use 90 minutes as a capping point for when the amount of Kuva gained per siphon no longer increases. At 90 minutes in, a good team should be able to get 600 Kuva per siphon, assuming you and your team continue at the rate that you've been going. You're going to average about 390 Kuva per minute. This means you're gaining Kuva about 50% faster compared to doing Kuva floods, which I think this is fair, as Kuva survival is much more difficult than Kuva floods at 90 minutes into the mission. Another aspect of Kuva scaling that other people have suggested is that siphon health scales as well. Now, I only agree to this assuming the Kuva rewarded doesn't increase. It should be risky to go for siphons further into the mission, and you should weigh the risk versus the reward of grabbing a siphon and possibly losing that chance of the 40 extra Kuva if you don't have the capability to defend the siphon. Anyways though, I really hope DE employs a scaling mechanic similar to what I have described in this video, as it takes both speed and consistency to receive the maximum amount of Kuva in the shortest time possible. Also, another suggestion, if the Kuva leaderboards were dependent on how much Kuva you collected and not how long you stayed in the mission, obviously accounting for factors like people having boosters or kavats, it would be way more interesting, because as it currently stands, it's just another survival. Whereas if you introduce Kuva as part of how much you've collected, it would be a lot more skill-based instead of just having people with Ivara and Covert Lethality go all the way and win everything. Anyways guys, you've reached the end of the video. If you have your own ideas as to how Kuva should scale, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below, as I try my best to read every single comment. Feel free to jump in my Discord, a link will be in the description, and as always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.